pace is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's November 6th. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Share your Tuesday thoughts with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. My name's Jason Longshore, joined by John Nelson. Jarrett Smith will be joining us in a bit, as will Joe Patrick of Dirty South Soccer. It's a typical Tuesday around here as we're in the week between Leg 1 and Leg 2 of the MLS Conference semifinals. Lots to dig into across the board on that. You see some teams who did not make the playoffs start to shape their roster for 2019. We'll get into that too. Taylor Twellman had a great conversation starter on the broadcast for Seattle and Portland. We'll talk about that. I also want to dig into Julian Gressel's tweet from yesterday and some of the offshoots of it about soccer's place in the American sports media. I think what's happening here in Atlanta is a little unique, and I want to dig into why that is and why it's not happening elsewhere and what has to happen for that to be the case. All kinds of stuff. John, what about you? What are you thinking about on a Tuesday, November 6th?
Well, first and foremost, it's a 4-letter word, and it's a clean 4-letter word. VOTE. You know, we're live. We do our thing. You can listen to us, multitask, save us for later. Bottom line, listen, download the apps, however you want to access us. That's great. But today is one of the days that makes this republic what it is. At 8 o'clock this morning, when I was taking someone out for his morning constitutional, the road outside my subdivision is a 2-lane road. And it was packed with cars parked on the curbs of both sides, making traffic virtually impossible. The parking lot to the polling place, which is right next door, is full. The line was out the door and back to the curb, so you're probably talking a good 50 yards out the door to where folks are doing it. Exercise your right today. Do it because that's what these days are all about. It's a part of the fabric of what makes this country better than all the others on this or any other planet. So take the time. Lines will be long because of the importance. Vote. I've already done it. I voted early knowing what today was going to be like. So go ahead, exercise the capability as an American citizen to go vote today. That's what's mainly on my mind before we get into all the sportsy stuff.
Yeah, pick your spot. I usually like to go in the afternoon if it works in my schedule, and it should today. You can catch, kind of a dead spot in the middle of the day after lunch. That works pretty well. If you're in line at the end of the night and it's getting close to closing time, stay in line. Your vote will be counted. Don't leave the line or anything like that. The lines are long. That's been the consistent report all day. So lines are long. Commit some time to it. Find a spot that works for you and go get out there if you haven't voted already in early voting. Let's get into the soccer talk and our Twitter timeline. I know we've got a few things to jump into there on a Tuesday Thoughts edition. I wanted to touch on the Tata Martino quote from after the match that I thought was pretty great. Katie Weaver brings it up. But in the playoffs, when you make a mistake and commit an error, you're eating nuts in your house. That's from Ivis Galarcep. Katie wants to know what it means for team tactics and what Tata thinks his players do with their free time. It's a funny quote. But the first part of it, he talked about the difference between the playoffs and the regular season. And look, this is something that gets lost, I think, in the shuffle. Managers and players who come to Major League Soccer, playoffs are not that crazy to them. They're just not. What happens in the Champions League after the group stage? Playoffs. What happens in the Copa Libertadores, Copa Sudamericana, Europa League after the group stage? Playoffs. What happens in the knockout rounds of a World Cup or a Copa America or a European Championship? Playoffs. It's not some crazy concept that people don't understand. So, as Tata Martino said, Game 9 of the regular season or a group stage or whatever, you lose, you got 10, 11, and 12 to try to fix it. Here, you don't. So everything changes a little bit. I thought that showed on Sunday, for sure. This was a team, and Parkhurst echoed it. I believe Lorenowitz and Gazan both echoed this. They tried to play their game, and when they had opportunities to, they did. But they also were comfortable making the decision, you know what? It's not on. We can't build out of the back here. Play long and reset. And they did that too. And that was something we haven't seen as much from this group. It's the playoffs. Everything changes. It's a different mentality. It's a different mindset. It's a different world. I don't know if the players would be eating their favorite nut after the season if they're eliminated. I don't know what that would be. Is it a peanut? Is it a pistachio? Is it walnuts? I don't know. But you're sitting at home if you make too many mistakes in the postseason, and that's what it comes down to. And I think Atlanta made the jump, and I think the lessons that they've learned over these 2 years, last year against Columbus, where you had a goalkeeper stand on his head, you didn't give up a goal. I mean, let's keep one thing in mind here. Atlanta United's played 2 postseason matches. They've played 210 minutes in the postseason. They have not conceded a goal in the postseason. So for all the talk about Atlanta and, oh, wow, this was such a huge change, they still haven't conceded a goal in the postseason. That's pretty impressive. Nobody talks about this defense in that way. Nobody gives them that credit. They deserve it. That's postseason soccer. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why yesterday when we were having the discussion about man of the match, that's why I was sitting there saying, can we just go ahead and give it to the entire back line? Because of what
they were. But it's not even that, though, and that's just something you have to keep in mind with Atlanta is the defense isn't just the back line. It's not disconnected. It starts with Joseph Martinez, Ezequiel Barco when he came on, Tito Villalba for the minutes he played, Miguel Almiron for the minutes he played. That defense starts up top because you're facing a New York team who wants to build out of the back. You make it difficult for them. You don't let Alexander Callens lead the attack, dribbling into the half like we see LGP do often. You don't let that happen. You cut off Yangel Herrera. You try to deny service to Maxi Morales to the point that Dome Tarrant moves him out to the wing to try to find him space. The defense isn't just the back line. It's the whole group, and that's what's impressive about Atlanta and the way they play.
And, I mean, how many times this season have we talked about, and just as an example, how many times have we talked about Joseph Martinez, and how many times have you and Mike on air talked about Joseph Martinez coming back and being right in the middle of everything that's going on defensively to clear a ball out of space, to clear it out of danger, to be back at part, all the backtracking that everybody does from the front. I mean, it's been a consistent topic. And I think it's something that's overlooked specifically with everybody up front and how they come back and retreat and help out.
This is a group that fights for one another. And Joseph is a player that, you can say what you want about, well, he's been in a slump. Look at his contribution. His contribution is more than just the goals he scores. The guy works hard, and I thought he worked maybe one of his hardest matches off the ball on Sunday night. And that's what happens this time of year. The goals dry up a little bit right now. You're not going to score as much. You have to protect your goal. That is job one here. And somebody did have a funny response. I said yesterday on Dukes and Bell that if you don't give up a goal, if you keep a clean sheet, you're not going to lose. And somebody said, well, what if it's an own goal? That's true. That's very true. That was
true.
A great but actually. But anyway. Yeah, if you play strong defense in the postseason, you're going to advance. If you don't, it's a fluke. That's a pretty good spot to be in. Atlanta's going to score goals. I don't see them not scoring goals very often. They're going to score goals. They were the leading goal-scoring team in the league this year. They're going to get their chances. But if they can keep working at this level and not giving up shots on goal, which you didn't give up any shots on goal to NYC, 0.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing to do this. And, again, 210 minutes of postseason soccer, and you have not conceded.
I just, when you said 0, the first thing that popped into my head was Blutarski's grade point average.
Well,
0.0.
There's that.
Amazingly similar numbers when it comes to goals allowed. And just step back and think about it for a second. Just that's what this defense has been able to do in the postseason. And it's something that fans can hang their head on. It's obviously something that's a bit of a point of pride for the 11 that are on the pitch for Atlanta United. So it's more than just the bells and whistles. At times, it's about how you grind yourself through a result. And the result in the Bronx was very chippy, it was very physical, and you showed once again that you can do this kind of stuff defensively and get that ground out result and move forward to where everything is in play for you at home this weekend.
I mean, Brad Kazan conceded 41 goals in 33 matches this season. Alec Can conceded 1 in his 1 start. 8 clean sheets, 9 now, including the postseason. There's just not a lot to complain about defensively with this group. And the goals are always going to get the spotlight. That's just the nature of the game. Goals are at a premium. They're always going to get talked about. This defense has to start being talked about and considered more. Michael Parkhurst up for Defender of the Year. Awesome. I think he's had a career year. I really do. And I think a big reason why he's had a career year is the group around him. Brad behind him, Leandro Gonzalez-Perez next to him, who is a Defender of the Year type of guy. Jeff Lorenowitz next to him in this 3-5-2, which was a pretty bold masterstroke by Tata Martino to go to Lorenowitz in the back. The first time we saw it was in New York, in this setup. We've seen him play in the back before, but generally he's been the replacement for Michael Parkhurst as the organizer of the back line. First time we saw Lorenowitz, Parkhurst, LGP together was against the Red Bulls. The idea was you could play out of the back against a pressing team with Parkhurst, Lorenowitz, LGP, because you have 3 strong players on the ball. They're also pretty good defenders, too. And it worked really well. The support from the outside backs, in this case, it was Franco Escobar, a little more defensive than Julian Gressel. Gressel can play that spot as well. And the return of Greg Garza, I think something that we haven't talked about a ton. Garza is just such a steady force on the left side who can get forward, nearly score goals. He's scored goals before, create chances, but also cover that ground on the left side. And I think defensively, he gets it. He understands the job that this takes. He's been in these situations before with Tijuana and other spots in his career. That's good to have, because as good as Bello has been in the minutes he's been in, he hasn't been in these spots before. And that's a big ask for a teenager to jump straight into that environment at Yankee Stadium on Sunday night.
And, when you can pull playoff experience from a bunch of different places and a bunch of different points of view and a bunch of different places on the planet, I think that it helps out, because experience in one place, while it is postseason, there might be some subtle differences and things like that. But having that experience in a bunch of different places and a bunch of different formats, I think helps out in the larger picture too.
Yeah, definitely. Just experience going through it is very important. We're going to take a break, come back, more of your Tuesday thoughts. We've got a few things on our mind as well, and we have Joe Patrick joining us at 9:30 from Dirty South Soccer. We'll talk about more Atlanta NYC with him. But next, we're going to talk about Taylor Twellman's comments during the Portland-Seattle match. You had another head injury incident, and I think Taylor is now really starting to push a fix for this, and I completely agree that this has to be considered. Things have to be talked about in this that do change the way the game plays. But look, it's 2018. We've got to modernize at some point. We'll get into it on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 6th edition of the show. We found Jarrett Smith. He was hitchhiking on the side of the highway. He's joined us now.
That's fun. Hey, it's better to do it through Marietta than, maybe where some of the places John goes in South Georgia.
Yeah, you don't want to hitchhike out in the boonies. You never know what's going to happen there.
Well,
See,
nothing, because the roads I travel are two lane with fields of cotton and peanuts and pecans and trees, so no one passes by.
I'm not trying to hitchhike through Cairo.
That's why you don't want to hitchhike there. There's nobody to pick you up.
Because all you see is green stuff on either side of the road. There's nobody there.
There you go. We were talking about some of the interesting things that have been said in the wake of Atlanta and NYC, and we'll get into that. And I'm already seeing a few questions about some of the incidents as well, and we'll talk about it. We got kind of zeroed in yesterday on the VAR stuff and all that. I hope my point was clear on it. I think the call was correct. I do. I just don't like the way it went down, and I hate the communication of it, because you're leaving broadcasters, and hey, I completely understand that radio is going to be last on the list, but we had no idea what was going on. You had John and Stu with no idea what was going on for a long time in that. It's unacceptable. It puts people in a position to where you cannot present a strong product. So fix the communication first. If you like the system, if you're pro in MLS and you're happy with the way it's working, whatever, fix the communication part. So the PA announcer, TV broadcast, radio broadcast knows what's going on, both as a ruling is being made and once a ruling is made. That will go a long way to helping your case. But yeah, fix the system too while you're at it. Let's get into Taylor Twellman's comments from the Seattle-Portland game. You had a clash of heads, a little bit of a scary situation, and Taylor, of course, and I think we all know this at this point, Taylor Twellman's career was ended by concussion. He is a leading proponent for concussion awareness and has done a lot of great things with U.S. soccer, and I think he's starting to get a bigger presence in the worldwide discussion about it. Here's the clip from the Seattle-Portland game with his discussion about it.
Corner kick.
Oh, boy, that ref's got to blow the whistle immediately.
Yeah, Tuiloma was crashing in to meet that. Not sure if it was...
This was Ridgewell and Svensson, if I'm not mistaken, and this is ugly.
Yeah, Svensson, the player down very quickly. The medical team coming on.
Yep. Oh, it's Guzman.
Yep.
Excuse me, it's Guzman and Svensson.
Well, Tuiloma crashed into the back of Svensson, didn't he? Who then went into David Guzman, almost the domino effect. Look at our target goalpost cam.
for those of you at home, this is why I beat the drum of the head injury sub. This is why. You are in the 45th minute. The Seattle Sounders have already used 2 subs, and now this has a massive impact on what Schmetzer, the staff, and the Seattle Sounders are doing. This is why we have to have head injury subs, because no way Svensson right now, with how that staff's reacting, they've got to properly assess them. They're going into halftime. This is why FIFA needs to step up and do this.
So what you're saying, just to clarify, is an extra substitute
for
any head injury over and above
because
the 3 regular.
It's the one injury that changes lives, and it takes the problem out of the coaches, the trainers, the doctors that are on the field right now. This is why I'm so strong-worded. I don't know how to say it properly without using a curse word. This is why I care, because this has to change, because Svensson right now needs direction on where he needs to be.
Because they're incentivized, aren't they, as it stands right now, to find a way to keep him on the field.
They have to, because they've already used 2 subs, That,
by the way, is Dr. Morris, who's looking at Svensson. Of course, he's the father of one Jordan Morris. Morris, who was lost for the year before it had even really started early on in the CONCACAF Champions League campaign back in February. Gustav Svensson, Goose, as they call him. 31-year-old Swede. Guzman is up and running. The official word, by the way, filtering up from the Seattle bench, it was a groin injury for Christian Roldan.
Svensson is back on the field.
I mean, you could hear the shock in Twellman's voice at the end about Svensson being back on the field. Let's recap the situation here and why this is an impossible situation to put a coach in and a team in. Gustav Svensson, potentially concussed. You don't know, and you're not going to find out that fast. You've had 2 players go off due to injury already. This would be your final sub. You can't make it at that point if you're Brian Schmetzer. You can't unless you absolutely have to. So you're putting Svensson back on the field not knowing exactly what the situation is with the head injury. I completely agree with Taylor, and I think there needs to be a process created for a head injury substitution. If it's a temporary substitution, so a player can truly be checked, not the cursory thing, not what we saw in the World Cup, splashing some water on somebody or smacking them in the back of the head, because that helps. Yeah. But truly being checked out. A temporary substitution that is only approved by an independent doctor. Because you get into situations in some matches where, and it's happened in a regular season, the physician on duty is an employee of the home team. The visiting team has a head injury, and if they want to check that player out, the visiting team is going to feel like, well, you're trying to help your employer. I get that. So you need an independent person that is not paid by the home team. You need an independent person that is paid by the league or the federation. They're the one who can approve a temporary substitution for a head injury. And if it is ruled that they are concussed and they are not allowed to come back in the match, you get that substitution. It does not count against your subs. I think you need to do it because you have to take that out of the hand of a manager who is trying to win a match and is in Brian Schmetzer's situation where he can't use that last sub. He's already had 2 injuries. He's stuck. He's not going to use it if he's not certain. So you're putting him in a position where he is putting a player into a risky situation. It's not fair to anybody involved. Rugby, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, rugby has a head injury rule and substitution rule, I believe.
Efforting.
Okay. Check that. I know you're starting to have talk about it in football and independent doctors and making sure players get checked out. You don't have the substitution rules in American football that you do in soccer. That is why it's a more difficult conversation in soccer. That's why you see players back on the field in the first half of a World Cup final, and they don't remember it because you only get 3 subs. I don't want to see them loosen up substitutions because that's part of the strategy of the game. In this case, when an independent doctor says this player has a concussion, they do not need to be playing again, a substitution should be allowed specifically for that. I don't think there should be any pushback on it because, as Twellman said, this is not a knee injury. This is not an ankle injury. It's not a hamstring injury. This is something that can, let's get real. This is something that can end your life.
2 types of substitutions in rugby union, temporary and permanent replacements. Temporary substitutions come on for any player who's been sent to the blood bin, I guess blood on a jersey or something like that. But they must return to the bench once the injured player has returned to the pitch. But if the injured player has not returned to the field within 15 minutes, they become permanent. Permanent replacements are substitutes who come on as a direct replacement for a player on the pitch. The substituted player is not allowed to return.
Yeah, and I don't know general substitution rules for rugby. It doesn't matter. But they're starting to think about it, and they're maybe coming at it more from a blood perspective. In soccer, you just have to take your jersey off for that situation. But we're up against the break. This is a difficult topic. It does change the way the game plays out, and I am very sensitive to purists and that idea that you don't want to change that. You don't want to just add more substitutions. I think you need to come up with a policy here, though. And I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing that soccer's starting to combat head injuries because it's more obvious in American football, obviously, but it happens in soccer. How many guys have we seen in their career in Major League Soccer early because of concussion? There's been quite a few. DC United had a flurry of them with Josh Gross. Oh, man, there's a bunch of players that DC had. I think Santino Quaranta was another one. Ross Pauley was another very promising young player with Columbus. Twellman. It's becoming more of an issue. It has to be addressed. U.S. soccer and the rules about heading at a young age, there's good and bad. I like the intent. I think it needs to be maybe fine-tuned a bit. But this is a discussion the game has to have. And I'd love if Major League Soccer would be a force leading this at the professional level and figure out a way to give it a trial. Because it's not something you can mess with. It just isn't. And you don't need to put a manager and a player into that situation where you're up against it. You don't have any more subs because of crazy fluke injuries in the first half, and you're putting your head at risk. You can't do that. You just can't do that. It's not fair to put the player or the manager into that situation. Let's take a break. Let's come back. We're going to get deeper into Atlanta and NYC with our buddy Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and Shelter Pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, November 6th edition. It's a Tuesday. That means we're joined by Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer. What's up, Joe?
Not a lot. How's it going this morning?
Good. Recapping everything from the weekend of craziness. We'll talk about all the other games a little bit with you as well, but let's dig into Atlanta and NYC from Yankee Stadium. Different performance from Atlanta United, and I think that's been the recurring conversation nationally is, whoa, this is a different Atlanta United. They were scrappy. They were gritty. What'd you make of it?
I thought that was one of the overarching themes of the game was just the fact that they were putting their bodies on the line. It was a more pragmatic approach. And I would just say along the lines of the pragmatism, it's not just about them getting stuck into challenges, although that's certainly part of it. If you look at their pass map from the second half, they were playing the ball long. They were trying to keep the ball basically away from their own goal mouth, which is something that I thought they should have done against New York Red Bulls, a month ago or so. But it showed a more pragmatic approach to the game, and I thought that that's something. And who knows if they would have taken this tact if this was a regular season game, because it definitely seems like Tata Martino wants his team to, build out, play out of the back, play good football, in these difficult moments. But obviously this is the playoffs and in these short tournaments, Tata Martino talked about it during the week that mistakes make a huge difference. In fact, in his opinion, the teams that win these tournaments are the teams that just make the fewest individual errors and the fewest individual mistakes. So I think that's really what Atlanta United's kind of mentality and game plan came down to, was just, let's play this game in a way where we can give ourselves the best opportunity to not make those mistakes, to not make those critical mistakes that lead to goals. And I think, that's what we saw. And Atlanta United has the attacking talent to create chances, even if they're playing in a way that's maybe not the most attractive, or maybe not the way that would typically lead to a lot of chances created. I think Tata Martino, and at least this is my opinion, I will take Atlanta United's chances with the players it has at its disposal to make the most of its chances when it's playing in this way versus, the opposition, and at the same time limiting the opposition's chances.
So, Joe, when you look at the defensive effort across the board, one of the points that we've made about Atlanta United cutting off all of NYCFC's supply lines, except for a couple of opportunities here and there where they would try to do the long bomb and try to get the one pass and work things over in transition, was, while we focused on the back line, I think that one of the things that we've also discussed is everyone up top working their way backwards just as quickly to be as involved defensively to make sure that NYCFC can't get anything going. I know that eyes gravitate toward the back very easily when it comes to thinking about defense, but everybody up front coming back and retreating and helping out, I think, was also part of the equation.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think the game Sunday was probably the most fluid we've seen this team in terms of filling defensive gaps. We talk a lot about the phrase total football and kind of where that comes from, and it kind of comes from the concept of every player is involved in a similar way in the game. Rotation, a lot like basketball. You're just rotating around the floor trying to find space. But a lot of times we think of that word or the phrase total football in the attacking sense, going forward, exploiting gaps, that kind of thing. But there's also a defensive aspect to it. Obviously, total football doesn't work if you're just leaving gaps all over the place. So that's part of the whole concept, is that you need players that are all over the field, just as good going forward as they are defending and having those defensive instincts. And I think that we really saw that in this game Sunday. The one that's obviously going to stand out is when Joseph was just diving into David Villa's boot in the box. And honestly, that play reminded me of watching the Copa Libertadores semifinal. Both of them, really, but the one that I paid more attention to was the River Gremio. Just watching some of that intense defending in the box towards the end of that game, it was really, it was something from Atlanta United. And I was thinking, there's a different kind of intensity in this tournament, but I think that we're starting to see that now that we're in a tournament setting. These players kind of realize it, and they realize that they need to put their, they need to kind of show everything that they have in order to win these games. So it was really, really good to see. I think it restored a lot of our confidence in the team. Just, from the outsiders watching, that really helps after such a disappointing week the week before. So very good to see.
Before Jarrett chimes in, let's clarify that Joseph diving into David Villa's boot was where Joseph's head should be.
That's true. Of course. Joseph had every right to go for that with his head. But
not according to some people. So just saying.
Oh, boy. Well,
go watch the MLS Rewind.
But don't. Oh, no. Okay. But seriously, you like Joseph knew what he was getting into. He knew that he was going to be getting a foot very close to his head by going for that, and it didn't stop him. And I think that that's really what we like to see.
Boots to the head aside, and violence aside, and possible cards aside, looking at that whole game, Eric Rometty scores his first goal. If you had Eric Rometty as the first goal scorer in Atlanta United playoff history, you're a lying human being, and quit lying to us. What are your thoughts about him as in terms of a summer edition? He comes in into a team that was kind of riddled with injuries at the time. Weren't really sure how he was going to fit when everybody was healthy, and he just keeps running out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely proved to the team that he's in the best 11. He's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet, I would think, from here on out. What I really appreciate about Eric Rometty is the fact that he's basically seems to be the class clown of this team. The little chest shimmy that he did after scoring his first ever goal as a professional. Players are just constantly making fun of him when they're doing interviews. He's making fun of himself when he's doing interviews. I saw on Instagram this morning, Franco Escobar had taken a snapshot of his, after he had scored his goal, and was making fun of his nose. I guess that's something that they like to do. So I really like the fact that, honestly, I'm kind of joking about it, but I think there is a bit of there's kind of a serious point here in the fact that I think that he's just gelled really well in this team. He's not a high ego guy, obviously, as we can tell. He kind of, they all make fun of the fact that he's basically the ugliest person on the team. And
wow.
But honestly, I think that from a summer signing, someone who comes in middle of the season, that's the kind of personality you need, is someone who's going to step in, know their role, do a great job on the field. Make no mistake, he's been fantastic for Atlanta United in what he's providing on the field. But he also has the personality that's kind of allowed him to make the most of his abilities since he's come into this team.
Yeah, Rometty's a really big signing, because you look at it, it's it's Bonfield. It's not a huge club. It wasn't a big name. He had about 50 matches in the first division in Argentina before coming here. But one key is he played 4 times in the Copa Libertadores at the beginning of 2018. He had 4 starts in Libertadores action against Independiente and against Nacional. That's huge in this scenario. And we talk about MLS playoff experience, but playoff experience as a whole, whether it's Libertadores, Sudamericana, Champions League, Europa League, what have you, is valuable at this time, because Tata Martino laid it out after the match. you have to be more pragmatic in these scenarios because mistakes will end your season. You have to be more precise, and you have to be up to match the intensity. Anton Tinnerholm dropping Miguel Almiron 2-3 minutes into the game, yelling at him to get up, set the tone. I thought Atlanta matched it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, he's a tough little bulldog of a player, and I think that's why Tata trusts him so much. I think we can clearly see the players that Tata has faith in and trusts to come into these big situations. And Eric Remedi is certainly one of them. And despite the fact that he's young, he's, like you said, he has tons of experience. I mean, he's been playing against men. Aside from the specific competitions he's played in, he's just the fact that he's been playing against men since he was like 16 or 17 years old is a big deal. It's a big deal because it's really set him up well in terms of being able to deal with the physicality of the game. He's just grown up sort of, playing that way. So, I think what he provides mentally, physically, technically for this team can't be overstated, really.
Then looking at it from the NYCFC perspective, what else stuck out to you other than them trying to turn it into just something that gets dragged through the mud for 90 minutes where they can try to take advantage of the size of the pitch and all that other stuff? From the NYCFC perspective, what else stuck out to you?
Well, I think one of the other aspects of the game that really stuck out to me, NYCFC was not able to get as much going through their wing play, and I would put that down to Greg Garza. I think that with Greg Garza in the lineup, the way he's able to defend Tajori Shroudy is much different than the way that Chris McCann would likely, defend, in that Greg Garza can just get tighter to him. And by the reason he can do that is because he's just a little more fleet of foot, and it allows him to, to make a basketball analogy, to like really get up in his man, and it just makes it more difficult to operate, to maneuver in those situations. So I think that was something that was really important for this team. I thought Greg Garza's introduction to the team was just as important as Miguel Almiron's, really. If you consider Almiron only played for 45 minutes and Garza was able to go the whole 90, I thought that what Atlanta, the way, and it's funny because we always think of Greg Garza as more attacking fullback, but I think it was the way he was able to help stifle that side and play pragmatically. We saw him just put the ball out with a slide tackle, just kicking the ball out of bounds many, many times. It allowed Atlanta to get reorganized in the back, and I think that was a huge aspect. Is Atlanta and the back was never really out of shape. They were never getting themselves overextended on, like maybe they would or could on a bigger field, and I think that just really made it difficult for NYCFC to operate.
And time to play Football Manager, if that's your game of choice. Going into this, I don't doubt it at all. I don't. You're better at it than I am too. I'm 99% sure. I just don't get fired after a year.
You're only here so you don't get fined.
Pretty much.
I did lose the inter-squad friendly to my under-23s this year, so not a good sign. Not a good start.
Well, that could be a good sign. You're developing talent.
That's true.
There you go.
I just mimicked the all saying call today. Looking at this game coming up this Sunday, NYC coming here, they need a result. Bottom line. Any changes you would make to the Atlanta side?
Ooh, it's an interesting one because, first of all, if we just look at the team, the way that Tata Martino laid it out is kind of interesting. It was a back 5/back 3, definitely more of a back 5 in the second half. But it was interesting because Julian Gressel was in that lineup, but not playing as the right wing back, which I think we've all pretty much decided is kind of his best position. But it was interesting. I think maybe the team, Julian Gressel at playing at right wing back may help the team create more opportunities offensively going forward in that role. But I think maybe as a whole, to really tighten up the team defensively, it's better to have him as a more mobile player playing as one of those central midfielders and have Jeff Lorenowitz in the back line, especially if Jeff Lorenowitz isn't going to be having to be covering a lot of ground on a small pitch like that. So I think that'll be one thing to look out for, is to see like where Julian Gressel plays. I assume they're going to stick with this the 3-5-2, 5-3-2 situation at the Benz. But I think it'll be really interesting to watch where Julian Gressel plays to see if, I think if he's playing on the right wing back, they might be thinking a little more attacking. And they could always move him mid-game to see, to kind of tighten things up. So I think that's one thing they'll watch out for. I wouldn't expect many changes. I mean, Tata Martino has told us, the media, that he's not a manager that likes to make changes. To be honest, if he can go with the same 11, he probably will. The one thing you would have to look out for is yellow card accumulation in these situations. You only need two yellow cards, and you're out for the next game. So that's going to be something that he probably needs to manage. But I think that's probably something more that he'll manage via substitutions rather than the starting 11. So to be perfectly honest, to answer your question, I wouldn't expect any changes, honestly, from this first team.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think it's going to be the same group that starts again. Big question is Almiron, and how much is he going to have to give here? Let's talk as we finish up with Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer. Let's talk a little bit about the other three series. You had no other top seed get a win on the road. Atlanta United was the only one. Sporting Kansas City went and earned a draw at Real Salt Lake. The other two, the lower seed got the win in the first leg. How do you think they finish out? What's your predictions for the second leg of the rest of the series?
Let's see. I'm very optimistic about the Columbus Crew. I got to be honest. I'm going to start with that one since it's the most pressing one for Atlanta United fans. The Crew are just doing very crewy things in this playoffs, and doesn't surprise me at all. Greg Berhalter is kind of his managerial style seems to be built for this. His players believe in him wholeheartedly, as they should, and it's going to be difficult for Red Bulls to get anything to get the result they need out of that game, specifically because Red Bulls are so good when the other team needs to have the ball and to be pushing forward, and they can counter press and basically create offense through their defense. In this game, I think Columbus is going to just let them have the ball, and they're going to have to try to create things with the ball at their feet, and just does not play into their style. So that'll be really interesting to see how that one goes down. RSL, they really need a result, in my opinion. There, it's going to be hard for them to get something in the cauldron at Sporting Kansas City. I see them going through. What was the other one? Oh, Portland, Seattle. Portland, they put themselves in a good situation. The one thing they would have wanted to keep a clean sheet, obviously, but it's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Portland. I think they're going to go up there and get a. And what was the last matchup? What was the one I'm not thinking of?
No, you got it.
Did I get them all? Okay.
That's
I guess I did get them all. I think, I heard you guys talking in the last segment about Seattle. I think that I don't know what the injury prognosis is for all those guys that they need to substitute out of that game, but that could be an issue for them. That does not make things easy. And with them having to go get a goal, that doesn't necessarily play into their style either. So that'll be something that's interesting to watch. And it also plays into Portland style. They are just happy to sit back and counter. We saw it in Mercedes-Benz Stadium earlier this year, so that'll be a good one to watch.
Yeah,
good clashes of styles in these second legs.
Definitely, the second leg's always where things really kick up. The first leg's just kind of setting the table. Joe, let everybody know what's coming up this week at DSS.
Yeah, we're basically just going to be continuing to analyze kind of what happened over the weekend. It's kind of interesting. We haven't really had this situation before where you're just playing the same opponent twice in a week. So we're going to try to analyze as much as we can, and then project forward and try to predict what might happen this weekend. Although this is MLS, so we'll almost surely be wrong about what we predict.
That's how it goes. Best. Yeah, welcome to MLS. Make sure you're following Dirty South SOC on Twitter and JA Patrick 200 on Twitter for all the latest. Joe, thanks for the time this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
We're going to take a quick break, come back and wrap up hour number 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, Yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
And we're back. Soccer Down Here, November 6th edition, final segment of hour number 1. Before we get into the Tuesday thoughts on the Twitters, let's do a little bit of a round table around the other series going on. So, first match of the second legs will be on Thursday because Seattle has a car show at CenturyLink. Well, it's going to hurt them more. I mean, we can all we want about the Sounders. They've got Chad Marshall with an injury. He's probably not going to be available. They got Christian Roldan with a groin injury. He is likely not available. You have to wonder about Svensson, too. They're the ones now that the short rest might actually hurt more, where Portland has the lead. They can just come in, play the Christmas tree 4-3-2-1, sit back and counter and try to get out of there with a result. Who escapes out of this one, John? Is it Seattle or is it Portland?
I got to go Portland since we don't know the injury. What's the plural of statuses?
I think so.
Okay, stati.
I don't think it's just stati. I think that's ridiculous.
I think not. And obviously not having Chad Marshall, and if it looked when you're stretchered off. Not having Chad Marshall at 100% or not having Chad Marshall at all, you don't have that anchor back there defensively. I think that Portland goes in and gets it done.
What about you, Jarrett?
I'm going to go against John on this. I think it is the funniest thing in the world that this shortened week is going to hurt Seattle more. I think they're able to find a goal, though, in the attack. I think they're able to find a goal that ends up being very, very important because at that point it's 2-2 and Seattle has the away goal advantage. I think they're able to find a goal and they bunker enough and get lucky enough to get out of there with a 1-0 win and win on aggregate.
Okay, now I'm baffled about the plural of status because it's really complicated. American, it's statuses. The Oxford English Dictionary, it's status. Stati is completely wrong. It doesn't exist.
Not a surprise.
So it's, yes, status is a weird word. I think Portland gets through here. I think they got enough in the first leg. They probably would have liked one more or to not give up the first goal, obviously, but the injuries for Seattle, I think Chad Marshall is the key here. If they don't have Chad Marshall, I don't think they're anywhere close to the same team. If it's Roman Torres next to Kim Keehee, if it's Svensson moving there, and then with Roldan injured, then you've got issues with Osvaldo Alonso by himself. I think Portland finds a way to get through it. I think it's ugly. I think Giovanni Savarese will be cheering on fouls and cheering on clearances into the stands, maybe trying to hit some of the cars so they're early for the car show, and Portland gets out of there and moves on. Next up, the early match on Sunday, ahead of Atlanta and NYC. It's Sporting Kansas City, RSL. John, who do you think gets through quickly?
I got to go Sporting in that one.
Jarrett?
RSL shocks the world, baby.
Oh.
Wow. I think it's Sporting. I think Sporting wins pretty comfortably. 2-0 or 3-1.
The Mike Petke experience rolls on.
I would love to see it for Mike Petke's sake, but I don't think he's got enough to get through Sporting Kansas City at 1-1. I think they needed to get their 1-0 lead. That goal for Kansas City on the road is enough to give Kansas City the win here. Then the final game after Atlanta and NYC, it's Columbus, it's New York Red Bulls from Red Bull Arena. John, does Columbus knock out the best team in MLS history?
Yes, slash the tires, tip the bus over. Stone Cold Steve Austin takes the construction crane and drops a big piece of cement on the DX Express, and it blows up. I'll go Columbus.
Jarrett?
Columbus wins. Columbus sits back. They make Red Bulls do all of the work, and Red Bulls are not able to do it without Columbus hitting them on the counter at some point.
I don't think Columbus sits back here, at least not early. I think they play pretty direct, but they don't sit back. And I think they put New York under some pressure. If they sit back, New York has to find a way to get Kaku more involved because you signed the guy for a reason. Last year you had Sasha Kljestan to try to solve these problems, although he didn't really do it in the postseason. Kaku is supposed to be the guy. You have to give him opportunities to do it. I think they have to start Shatkovsky as well. I was a little surprised not to see him in the first leg. Royer didn't do it. Etienne, I think, is a better option off the bench later. I don't think you can expect a ton out of him. He's a change of pace guy. Muil is a good defensive guy, but I don't think he gives you enough going forward. This is Chris Armas's moment. I thought he grabbed control of this team and was changing the narrative against Atlanta. I thought his personality would give them something different. They're playing a little different than they did under Jesse Marsh. This is where he's got to show that he's a different type of guy. That personality has to come through. This team has to get a little nasty. They have to believe in themselves. Didn't see enough of that in Columbus, to be perfectly honest. They need to embrace it, and they need to be just a tough team to deal with here, and they're going to have to control the play more than they ever have. We'll see if the Kaku signing was the right one. We'll see if Bradley Wright Phillips can elevate his game. We'll see if they get something off the bench to give them an attacking impetus. I think they find a way. I really do. I think they are the best team in the regular season. I think they're a better team than Columbus. But they have to show it, and I completely get not believing in them because they've been in this situation before. They've won Shields before, didn't get to MLS Cup. Their backs are against the wall now. They've got to show that they are that good. And we'll see what Chris Armas is made of. We'll see what Kaku is made of. We'll see what Bradley Wright Phillips is made of because they're going to have to open up more than they're comfortable in doing. It's going to be a fun one in the nightcap. I'm looking forward to that one, hopefully after an Atlanta United comfortable advancement at Mercedes-Benz against NYC. We'll get into your Tuesday thoughts on the other side. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down Here for November 6th. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning, and it's the hashtag Tuesday Thoughts portion of the show. Let's hear your Tuesday thoughts out there in the SDH universe. John, what do we have on the Twitters?
Let's start with ATL UTD fan number 1, coming off of the Joe Patrick interview. He says, I definitely understand what Joe's trying to say. Atlanta United team camaraderie is second to none when I look at what other teams around the league is doing, and it's a big part of winning. It's a family atmosphere, and I hope it continues. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
It's definitely a family atmosphere. This is a group that I think just enjoys playing together. And, yeah, you have your groups of friends on the team. Obviously, it happens with any group of people. And I think early on, people made a lot of cliques. I don't think there's cliques on this team. I think there's different groups of friends who hang out off the field and get along really well. And I think on the field, this is a group that fights for one another. You saw it on Sunday night. You know, when players were getting kicked, when players were getting knocked down, other guys were helping them up. Other guys were getting a little bit of a receipt afterwards, and it was one of those types of games. I think this team really came together a lot after the poor performance in Toronto, and it was a chance to refocus on what's important going into this postseason.
Jarrett from Shiva, what do you think about David Villa's dangerous tackles on Greg and Joseph? How did he not even get a yellow?
All right, let's do this again, because I'm not going to get tired of this, I promise. Okay, the one on Joseph, it was dangerous, but I understand what he was going for, and
still a yellow card.
That one is it's still a yellow card, but it's more forgivable. It's dangerous, but I see what he's trying to do. Joseph comes flying out of hammer space, and it's wrong place, wrong time. It's unfortunate, but it's still a yellow card. The kick on Garza, look, there's a lot of refs that have given a straight red for that. And if he'd gone straight red for that, I would have understood, because it was studs up. It was late. It was right into the kidney of Greg Garza. It was another one of those that I understand what he was trying to do, but that one was, reckless endangerment.
What was he trying to do on that? Garza's heading the ball away.
I think he made the decision early. I'm going to go flying in here and try and slide and kick this ball, and did not look at what was around him. And I honestly think he was thinking, I'm going to go do this, and did not think to look at anything else, and stuck his foot up there, totally not considering the fact that anyone might be around there, or that the ball might not even come in that general area. And to me, that's why it's a red card. It was reckless play. It was dangerous and reckless. So the Joseph one, I thought was a yellow card. The Garza one, you could have given a straight red, and I don't know how you could have argued it, because it was studs up. It was of a player.
It's mind-blowing that you have two incidents like that in a game and David Villa doesn't see a yellow card. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And if it's
also mind-blowing that Alex Ring didn't, that Alex Ring was with his stepping on LGP. I mean, there were a couple of these in this game.
That's another one. I mean, honestly, the way this game played out, LGP could have seen yellow. I mean, easily. I thought Kevin Stott, the way he called the game was fine. The way he used cards was very poor. I thought the fouls were... He called it the way he had to call it. It was going to be physical. It's going to be nasty. You have to find your spot and when to blow the whistle and when not to, because you don't want just a game of free kicks. Totally get that. But these incidents with Villa, if this was David Villa from El Paso, Texas, then he's red carded easily on the Garza studs up. He's yellow carded on the bicycle kick attempt. He's not playing in leg 2, and he's sent off in this one. Because it's David Villa, the Spanish legend, he's not. This happens in MLS a lot.
I was going to ask who else does it, and then who else is going to ask the two of you who else gets to Jordan rules like that.
Everybody. Every major name from Europe gets it. Every single one. Zlatan. He got caught on a VAR situation with the hand to the face, but there were other times that Zlatan got away with stuff. Schweinsteiger always gets away with stuff, and he's a savvy player, and he knows what he can do. Villa's a savvy player. Villa knows at that point when he goes full bike, kicks Joseph as he's going to head the ball, and Villa is upside down kicking it. Any other time you'd get a yellow. He doesn't get a yellow there. It's game on. It's game on. That's why you can go studs up above a player's waist and not see a card. Like, really? Studs up. Greg Garza gets a red card, studs up to the knee in the Red Bulls match. And he absolutely deserved the red card. And everybody, what was the conversation? What was it? Oh, it's reckless. It studs up. It was above the ball. It's a knee. It studs up. It's a red card. It's a red card. Studs up to the kidney. I mean, come on. I think that's a foul in the All Valley Karate Tournament. How is it not a card here?
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
He tried to
get him a body bag.
He tried to sweep the kidney. It's got to be a card. Even if you think it's an accident. Even if you think, well, that wasn't dirty, but man, that's some reckless play. It has to be a yellow.
Well, that's the same situation as the Garza card, because the Garza red card in New York, against New York, it was the right call.
But what was
he
the
put
argument?
his foot on the ball.
But the argument
I know.
oh, well, it doesn't matter if the foot hit the ball. It was studs up to the knee. It's a red card. I agree. This is studs up to a freaking kidney. Go watch the video. The video made me angrier than I was watching it live. Because it blows your mind that a yellow at a minimum is not shown there. Again, if it's David Villa from El Paso, he's going to the showers. That's not okay. Because, and this is why I think it drives me nuts, Miguel Almiron doesn't get that call. Joseph Martinez doesn't get that call. Ezequiel Barco doesn't get that call. Tito Villalba doesn't get that call. Tito Villalba gets a yellow card on his first foul after coming into the match in the second half. David Villa nearly volleys Joseph Martinez's head and goes studs up on Greg Garza's kidney and doesn't see a yellow. What's wrong with this picture?
The point I'm making is you had the red card right on Greg Garza against New York.
Absolutely.
It was a play where he was going for the ball. His foot hit the ball, bounced off the ball, and went up. It was an accident, but it's still a red card. Both of those don't have to be mutually exclusive, is what I'm getting at.
No, I'm totally with you. But I'm trying to make the point that Greg Garza goes in, studs up on the ball, makes contact with the ball, foot goes up, makes contact with the player's knee. Red card. David Villa slides in. Greg Garza heads the ball. David Villa misses the ball by, 2.5, 3 feet? Goes studs up on Garza's torso. No card. Are you kidding me? Which one is more egregious? It's not even a question. And to hear people try to justify, Well, I don't know how you justify it. I don't even know what their argument would be. It's reckless. It's dangerous from Villa. It wasn't the first time in this match. It's not the first time in his MLS career. He knows that he can get away with stuff, and he takes advantage, and he should. It's a problem for the referees to not be consistent in this. Villalba yellow card 3 minutes into his appearance. First foul of his appearance. Foul from behind in the corner in New York City's defensive corner. Yellow card. David Villa.
I thought Ring just fell over Tito in that particular instance. Wasn't even close. Shouldn't have been a card.
It's a foul, but there's but this is the thing, and this is where the cards were a problem here. And it's even more magnified when you have the accumulation rules. Okay, it's a foul. You go yellow there. If you go yellow on that, everybody on the field's leaving with a yellow. Period. Because of the way that game's called. You can't go yellow there and not go yellow on a bicycle attempt, dangerous play near a player's head, and a studs up to the kidney. You can't go yellow on a nothing foul in a nothing part of the field for a player who's been in the match for 3 minutes versus a player who has already went up for a bicycle kick and nearly hit a player and called for a foul, and then you go studs up later into a player's kidney and you don't get a card. You can't call the game that way. That's the problem I had with it. This is nothing new, though. The Stars and certain Stars get calls. Atlanta United Stars, they don't know scenarios. It's frustrating, and now Tito's on a yellow card, one more yellow. He's out for a game in the playoffs. David Villa is not on a yellow card. Mind-blowing.
Jeb Hart says Atlanta doesn't need to change a thing. They play better on the road because teams open up against them. With a 1-goal lead, NYCFC will have to open up at the Benz and play right into what Atlanta does best. The pace and tone of the match are already set pre-kick. Hashtag Thursday thoughts. Okay, so Jeb's 2 days ahead of the game.
Jeb's like me. I don't know what day it is. Jarrett, thoughts?
Yeah, I can see this going in the way of like the RSL game or something along those lines, or even the first New York City game where Atlanta's able to create chances because New York is going to open up a bit. Now it's a different animal because it is, Dome Tarrant as opposed to Patrick Vieira, but I could see there being goals on both ends here. Atlanta's going to have chances with New York trying to get forward because they're going to get stretched out vertically and horizontally. But Atlanta's defense is going to have to keep playing the way they did. And, I know we just harped on officiating, but I'm going to be curious what the officiating is in that game. Because if you get someone in here who starts handing out yellows in the 10th minute, that game gets weird.
It's very strange. This game could go a lot of different ways because these are two teams who have a bit of an edge. I mean, let's be honest about it. These are two teams that play in a similar way. Both have players who can go over that line in terms of what's yellow card, what's not yellow card, what's red card, what's not red card. I'm intrigued to see who's going to get this game as the center referee, and I think that's a very important decision for Pro to make. If you get somebody who is very card happy, this could have a very different feel than if you get somebody who lets a lot of play go. It's going to be interesting. From an Atlanta perspective, you have to just take care of business as early as possible. You don't want this to stretch out. You can't give up a first goal because then you're back completely even and it's a dogfight. You have to get it back to you score first at Mercedes-Benz, then you make New York City have to score 3 times. I don't think they're capable of it. Not at Mercedes-Benz. I know they scored twice. One was a penalty. One was Alexander Ring with the goal of his life. You need to put the pressure on NYC. I don't think they're all the way 100% bought in with Dome Tarrant yet. You want to make them continue questioning that.
And speaking of a little strange in this segment, Nathan Pugh says, usually a podcast listener at 1.7 times. I didn't know you could do that. but able to listen live today. Y'all sound so strange/drunk at normal speed. Talk faster. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
I am not a chipmunk, Nathan Pugh. I can't do it.
So then who's Alvin, who's Simon, and who's Theodore, and who's Dave Seville?
I just said I'm not a chipmunk, so I'm not Alvin, Simon, or Theodore.
Might be Dave, just trying to wrangle everybody and get everybody in line.
God, that sounds about right.
I couldn't pass that one up. I didn't know that you could listen to podcasts at 1.7 times speed.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Technology, man.
It's crazy, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah, you can. They could basically make you sound like Tiny Tim by the time they were done if they wanted to speed it up enough.
That is weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to bring Tiny Tim references to your morning.
There you
show.
go.
There you go.
We're going to take a break, come back, more of your Tuesday thoughts after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 6th edition, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. We'll get into more of your Tuesday thoughts after this. I wanted to touch on something from yesterday I thought was really interesting. Julian Gressel tweeted in the morning, he said, I've had a lazy morning and was able to catch First Take and The Herd for a good chunk of time. I just wanted to make them aware of the fact that hashtag MLS Playoffs are currently happening. They even aired on your networks all afternoon long yesterday. And FTC UTD on Twitter said, this is something I feel we got to address on our podcast. Is soccer talk being relegated to only occurring on soccer shows/networks? Given that ESPN FC is largely behind a paywall and BN Sports can hardly be found, where can the average fan go to get regular soccer talk on TV? You can't. There isn't any. It doesn't exist. There's not soccer talk for the average fan on much mainstream sports media, period. There's a couple reasons for that. And I think soccer people can look in the mirror at themselves, too, on this. This is something that we've talked about a lot at 92.9 The Game. And we had a long conversation going into this season on the programming side about what soccer coverage could look like. And we do specialty soccer stuff. Don't get me wrong. We have our podcasts. We have our This Week in MLS podcast. We have our March to Match Day podcast. We do Stoppage Time, which is now live. And join us tonight, Fido Irish Pub. Cheap plug. 7 o'clock. You can watch on Facebook.com/929thegame. You can come join us. We are giving away playoff tickets if you don't have tickets. So that's a pretty cool, sweet reason to come out. Tony Annan, Atlanta United Academy Director, will be there along with Vera from Resurgence. We'll talk TIFO. We'll talk Academy. We'll talk Atlanta NYC. It'll be a lot of fun. Please join us if you can. So we have that stuff. But on air, we had a conversation about having a soccer show, and it would have been slotted in probably in the evening or like after 9 o'clock or in a morning slot in the weekend. And I'll give Terry Fox and Sean Thompson, program directors at 92.9 The Game, a ton of credit because they said, you know what, we'd rather have this as part of our conversation. What FTC United, FTC UTD, and Julian Gressel are both getting at here. 92.9 The Game, you hear yesterday, I was on with Dukes and Bell in studio during afternoon drive. Dukes and Bell, highest rated show in the city, talks Atlanta United all the time in the midst of their conversation about the Falcons, the Braves, the Hawks, college football, whatever. It's part of that conversation. I think some soccer people don't want that. Some do. It's a double-edged sword here, folks. The specialty stuff is great, and you can have that. But if that's all you get, is it really advancing the game? Is it really growing the game? Is it better to have on SportsCenter talk about MLS? It happens occasionally, but generally it's in a SportsCenter top 10 segment, or it's in a not top 10 segment, or it's an anchor who doesn't know anything about the game who is kind of dismissive in the way they present it. It's not easy on either side here. It's not an easy decision. For general sports talkers or hosts, they might not know the game very well. And you're going to get a couple different ways to approach it. You're either going to be dismissive because you don't know it. You're not going to talk about it because you're afraid to not sound smart. You're afraid to sound dumb about a topic. Or you're just not a fan of soccer and you're going to dismiss it. It's a really interesting spot that soccer's in right now. And I think it's getting into the conversation to a point that this is going to keep coming up. It didn't 10 years ago. It definitely didn't 20 years ago and back. It is now because you have people growing up who are sports fans and soccer is part of their fandom. They want to have soccer talk in the midst of your sports conversation, not in a separate email list, not on the big soccer message board, not just on Twitter. They want to hear from Darren Eales after you hear from Matt Ryan. They want to hear from Michael Parkhurst after you hear from Jeff Francoeur about the Braves. They want that conversation as part of it. In Atlanta, it happens. I don't know if it happens in any other market in the country, and it doesn't happen on national TV, obviously, because you're not getting a debate between Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman about David Villa's red card or non-red card.
NYCFC is terrible.
But you want that.
I know.
I want that conversation. That's the thing.
I'm aware. I know.
But this is, I don't think every soccer person does because of that. Because, Stephen A. might not know exactly what he's talking about, and he's going to sound goofy about soccer. I want them to talk about it because then it's part of the mainstream. Then when you have a playoff game announced 2-3 days before the game starts, your average fan knows it's happening. Why do you think the attendance is bad for playoff games, folks? It's only the hardcores who know what's going on. Real Salt Lake, they won in Los Angeles Thursday night. They had one business day to sell tickets for a playoff game. Everybody's trashing Real Salt Lake for drawing 14,000 to that. I'm impressed because I don't know how much general consciousness there is of Real Salt Lake and how much general consciousness in Salt Lake City there was that our team won on Thursday night. Now we get to have a playoff game on Sunday night. if it's not part of the mainstream, that's what happens. It has to change. Soccer people, Taylor Twellman does it when he goes on ESPN to go on SportsCenter, go on Get Up, go on whatever show he's on. He'll have the conversation in a general sports sense. We need more of that. We have to have more of that. And do it in an intelligent way. Taylor's awesome at it. He doesn't talk down to people if they don't know what's going on in the soccer conversation. He educates. We have to have that, folks. It has to happen at the local level. It has to happen at the national level because I agree with Julian. These are the two big debate shows in terms of sports. Nothing about the MLS playoffs. There were lots of stories to talk about.
I think also it comes down to the host themselves and wanting to put that content out there. The only time I've ever heard the host, the solo host of those two shows that were mentioned, discussing anything about the sport is a negative, low-hanging fruit comment about something in the mainstream that's going to drive listenership and get people pissed off.
I disagree.
That's the only time I hear that solo host.
I disagree on Colin Cowherd because he's had Christian Pulisic on for interviews. He's had Lawless on, who's one of the Fox guys, which he should have on more often. He should have Stu Holden on more often, but he's had Pulisic on. He's had Landon Donovan on. He's had different conversations that are legitimate there. You need more. And he was having those in the context of U.S. men's national team. This has to happen for Major League Soccer.
Agreed. And that other show won't touch it. There's no way.
No, they won't. No, they won't. And I'm not. I don't really watch either one. I don't like the debate shows as much. I'm not the biggest fan of all of Cowherd's takes, but he has tried at times to do it. But it's been in a World Cup or U.S. men's national team conversation. Never Major League Soccer. It's going to take everybody working towards this. Yeah, the hosts are part of it. We've been absolutely blessed at 92.9 The Game with every host at the station opening their mind up to talking about soccer. I've had the conversation with hosts who were like, I'm glad you're able to come on because we don't know where to go with this. It's completely okay. It's completely understandable. And the hosts have been open to trying it, open to seeing what it does. And I know for a fact that there are soccer fans who listen to the station now for their sports coverage that wouldn't have before because soccer has helped them grow. Dukes and Bells having some of their greatest ratings they've ever had. The station is having great ratings across the board, year to year.
Mike, where's kids to work?
Soccer is a huge part of it. I want other stations in local markets, and that's where it starts. It's going to start local before it gets to national. I want to see other markets embrace it in the same way. Don't just throw a soccer show on in the morning on Sunday at 7 o'clock. Don't throw it on at 11 p.m. during the week in one slot for 30 minutes. Open it up. Houston, bring Glenn Davis on to talk about the Dynamo and what's going on with the Dynamo in afternoon drive, in morning drive. Do it. Do it more. Bring Glenn Crooks on in New York. There are people out there who can do this. Stations have to take the leap of faith. Mainstream sports has to take the leap of faith that there is a soccer audience out there that is not in a vacuum and not in a soccer bubble that only wants to talk to soccer people and not talk about general sports. And soccer people, be willing to embrace it. Don't be dismissive to people when they're trying to talk about soccer. Give them a chance to learn and grow into it. Support them. Tell them you're going to watch their show and listen to their station more if they talk about it more. That's what it comes down to is ratings. There is a big soccer audience out there, but right now it's in its own world. It's a tough conversation. It's not an easy fix, but I tell people around the country a lot, and Jared, I mean, I want to get you to speak on this as well because you are a sports guy, not just a soccer guy as well, like all of us are. But when I talk to people nationally, it blows their mind that our local sports talk at 92.9 The Game talks about soccer in every part of the day, as opposed to just a specialty show or just a cursory bit of coverage. It's just part of the conversation. I don't think there's another city in the country that has that. I really don't.
And it goes to the soccer people as well. Like, if I come in there, it's not just a soccer conversation. They don't, you don't get pigeonholed in one sport or the other. And it's great. I mean, you've got, if you come in there or I come in there, people will ask, and you can jump in and talk about something other than soccer. Rick Kamala, who's on NBA TV, jumps in and talks about other sports. It's not a pigeonholing thing, which is just as important in my opinion, because yes, it's great if you can build the conversation, but you don't want to pigeonhole people as to, okay, well, this is a break glass in case of soccer discussion. We have this person, and otherwise we put them back behind the glass. You don't want that. And it's a really good situation right now across the board. I mean, you're seeing more coverage on radio. You're seeing more coverage on TV. I go to media availability at the end of the week for Atlanta United. Depending on what the schedule is and what, the TV stations have their people doing, they'll have people out there in training. There were tons of cameras out there for Joseph's Golden Boot. I had to stand behind cameras and just be tall. Talking to some of the camera guys, they'll have, we couldn't be there that day because, we had to be on the road up to Lexington to go to the UGA Kentucky game because that was our assignment, or we had to go to the Falcons stuff. And because it's a busy time of year in sport, especially in the city of Atlanta, there's a lot going on. Especially in the state of Georgia, there's a lot going on. So the fact that they're making time for it is something that's really awesome. And I don't want it to be handled with kid gloves. I don't want it to be handled in the sense of, we have to make time for soccer. And it's part of the culture now, and make it as part of the culture as apple pie. Make it
in
so
Atlanta, it's absolutely part of the culture. It just is.
So cover it. Yeah. So cover it like it's a sport in Atlanta. Don't handle it with special gloves.
That's what's great about it.
I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's what's great about it here, and I don't think anybody else does in the country. I truly don't. Kudos to WSB. Zach Klein was at Yankee Stadium doing live shots for the playoff game on the road. It's not cheap, folks. That's costly on a big weekend. Zach Klein could have been in D.C. for the Falcons game. He could have been in Lexington for the Georgia-Kentucky game coming back to Atlanta. He was in New York City. That's huge. I want to touch on this before we go to break. Artist formerly known as TLC tweets, I don't mind them being goofy or wrong. I worry that they'll be intentionally damaging to the sport. They'll highlight the failures and diss the league rather than actually discuss soccer. That is my concern. They may do more harm than good. I fear a hot takes apocalypse against the game and the league. Criticism is healthy when done properly, but if they smear, it'll turn viewers away rather than intrigue them to watch. We can't be afraid anymore, and if MLS is afraid of that, if MLS is afraid of it and not courting national media because, I don't want them to really look at things around the league, then up your game. And then up your game, because if you're constantly worried that people are going to say something bad about your product, then you think there's something wrong with your product. I don't think there's anything wrong with MLS. Are there things that can be better? Sure. There's things to improve, but I'm not afraid of exposing it to people. Not the Atlanta United product anyway. I told John and Rick on the midday show all last year and beginning of this year, come out to a game. Come try it out. I know you guys aren't soccer guys. I know this is new for you, but I think you're starting to get interested. Come experience it. And they did. And they've loved it.
Cam got
and they've
converted.
been back a bunch of times. So we can't be afraid of the negative. Look, the negative's there. If you don't do anything to change it, if it continues like this, it's going to be the same. The AJC, I specifically remember unfollowing at AJC during the 2010 World Cup because immediately after the U.S. huge win that everybody is talking about and going nuts with the Landon Donovan goal, they tweeted some very snide, anti-negative thing about soccer. I can't remember what it was. It was something just very intentional and very snide, and they tweeted it out. And I remember unfollowing them, and I remember tweeting at them and saying, Why are you putting this on the AJC account? I am unfollowing you. If you have a personal opinion, put it on your personal account. And I unfollowed them for a long time. They've come around. They've committed huge resources to Doug covering this team. They don't have to do that. Not many people do. They have been bought in because it's valuable to them. They're getting readers because of their coverage. I don't want people to be afraid of covering it. I want them to see that there is a soccer audience that will embrace it, and I don't want soccer people to be afraid that they might say something bad. Have the conversation. I've been on with Rick and John, and they have asked the question that a lot of people have asked about, well, it's coming into football season, or the Braves are in the postseason. Are you worried about attendance? Have the conversation. Tell the story. No, I'm not. Because it didn't happen last year. I don't think it's going to happen now. I want soccer people to also not be afraid of having that conversation. Sometimes the general mainstream media looking at it and saying, well, why is this the case? Why is it like this? That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I want them to ask, why did Real Salt Lake only draw 14,000 for a playoff match? Have a legitimate conversation about it because it should be talked about. Why did Columbus draw 12? It should be talked about. They were in the same boat and probably less resources to work with. They won on Thursday, and they had one business day to sell tickets for a Sunday game. And they don't have a big staff to activate. That's why you draw 12,000 for that game. Should the playoff format change because of that? Let's have the conversation. Let's talk about it. That'd be a great debate for Max and Stephen A to have. Let's do it. Don't be afraid. Soccer's at a point now. Don't be afraid. Let's do this. Let's have this conversation and let's continue to grow it because it doesn't grow otherwise. It's not going to grow if it is in a bubble with stuff behind paywalls, just podcasts, just blogs, just specialty sites. It's not going to grow that way dramatically. The way it grows is when it becomes mainstream. It's mainstream everywhere else in the world, for the most part. A couple countries are closer to the way we have it. We want to see it bigger. Let's not be afraid of what comes with that. I thought that was an interesting discussion that Julian and FTC UTD got going. And I've seen various aspects of it before, but I hope it changes. I really do. I've loved being part of the mainstream conversation here in Atlanta about sports and talking about Atlanta United to people who are new to it and watching them get interested and then not being afraid to talk about it on their own. That's been awesome. That's probably been one of the most rewarding things about doing this. I want to see it happen more. I want Max Kellerman and Stephen A to have a debate about David Villa's potential red card. I want that sort of stuff. We need that. More than having Zlatan on to just have a jersey and say funny things. Let's talk about the game, not just have the fluff pieces, please. Let's take a break. Let's reset. Let's get into more Tuesday Thoughts after this. Stay with us.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and Shelter Pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
And we're back. Soccer Down here, Tuesday Thoughts edition, November 6th. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you. John, let's get back into the Twitter timeline of Tuesday Thoughts.
A lot of them have to go back to the last segment. Joe Bost said that he was glad to see 92.9 the game. Sorry, at 929 the game, promoting at Atlanta United and bringing soccer to the masses. I won't ever care what the national sports talking heads, i.e. Stephen A. Smith, say or think about soccer, bringing people that know and have the hosts learn as we have.
Everybody there has been awesome about it because, Fricky covered soccer with the Chiefs. Beyond that, he didn't have a ton of talk. And there was a great interview that I
to be fair, Fricky covered soccer at the founding of the sport. Probably.
Well, we know this. I mean, we absolutely know this. But there was a great interview with Carl Dukes from Dukes and Bell last week, and I shared it. And he talked about it. Like, it was a national radio interview about their great ratings and his career. And he talked about, hey, we talk soccer during our show. And the guy's like, what? Really? Huh? And it's like, yeah, we have players on. We have team personnel on. We talk soccer regularly because it's part of the conversation here. And it's what people want to talk about. But the station has helped cultivate that to where it is something people want to talk about. It's moving past the beginning of it when it was you'd talk about soccer and they'd get a bunch of comments on the text line like, why are you talking soccer? And then the flip side was when they're not talking soccer, you'd get comments on the text line like, talk about Atlanta United. Now it's just more part of the conversation. That's good. That's a good thing.
And then also on the board, Shiva said that in discussing Channel 2, coworkers never watched soccer knew about Joseph's golden boot watching the news.
Yeah, that absolutely happens. It's just different. It's just different in Atlanta. It's so cool to me as somebody who's from here and was that soccer guy for so long to see that it's just part of the conversation here. Ender Inciarte shows up from vacation to hand over the golden boot to Joseph. It's all over the local news. You've got local news on site in the playoffs. I mean, it's just awesome to me. It's so very cool to see. I want other cities to have that because then the sport grows.
All right, so then let me ask the two of you this. How much of this do you think can be contributed to the idea that because of the mix of natives and transplants, that this is probably one of the first instances of a team being brought online in a city that is this melting pot, that is as unique as the Southeast is? While, yes, you have your natives who are tied to Georgia and or UGA and Georgia Tech and the Braves and the Falcons and such, and have done this generationally. It's like the discussion that we had last night on soccer over there. This is the first, I think this is one of the first chances where people can attach themselves to something. They're new to a town, they're new to a region, so is this, so they can attach themselves to Atlanta United, and everyone's along for the ride.
That's a completely different conversation than the media, though. It's completely different. I mean, the numbers help push the media, sure. The numbers are big here and help that, but you have lots of transplants in New York, and the Red Bulls and NYC haven't been able to really hit that type of level. They just haven't. New York's a very crowded media market, and it's not easy Totally get it. But the numbers help in Atlanta, but still, you could have approached it the exact same way that you do everywhere else, because that's what's safe. That's what's easy. And it's been cool that people here have been willing to try it and try something different in the way it's approached and are seeing results. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is if you try it and you talk about it and it doesn't move the needle and it doesn't change anything, then, if you have a preference not to talk about it, you're not going to talk about it. But when the numbers are there, backing it up, the winning's good. I don't even know if that matters. The winning doesn't change the ratings part of it. I'm talking about, a show like Dukes and Bell and a station like 92.9 that the ratings are up. The ratings are up year to year, comparing the same month last year to this year. There's the only thing that's changed is soccer. Last year the ratings were up. This year they're dramatically up year to year. The thing that's changed is soccer. That's awesome, and that's why you're going to continue to hear it.
Joe Bost says, hashtag Tuesday thoughts from folks like y'all and others. I understand the need for that discussion for the growth of MLS, but I won't watch them about any sport. Give me local people who know their stuff. And he also says that Fricky invented soccer balls.
We know Fricky invented soccer balls. That's definitely true. For me, I'm local first, too. Like, I totally get that. And that's where it's got to start. I mean, for ESPN, FS1 to cover it in that way, that's different. Locally in each market, I'd love to see more of what is happening here, because I think it's going to help the local market. Local is almost always better. You're going to have a better approach. I'm totally with you on that. But I've seen it sometimes, and I understand it. And I think soccer is probably the sport that is most unique to this. I don't see, and Jarrett, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I know these people exist, but I don't see baseball fans saying, why are you talking about football? I don't see basketball fans saying, well, why are you talking about baseball? Or football fans saying, well, why are you talking about basketball here?
No, everyone seems pretty chill.
But it's more of, I think it's more of, okay, well, I'm a football fan. I don't really care about the Hawks or the Braves as much. But, yeah, they're going to talk about it because it's a major sport.
You see it mostly, I think, in the pettiness of, like, oh, well, we just watched a World Series game that was super fun, but ESPN led with, 5 minutes of LeBron James highlights and the third game of the season kind of thing. Like, why
it's
is
a little different? Yeah.
That's I think that's where it generally happens.
I think with soccer and there is still a backlash from mainstream sports fans, like, oh, I don't like that sport, and for the usual things that they would have said in 1983. That still happens, but that's really diminishing. So I think we can almost kill that narrative off. You do have some people who just don't like soccer. That's fine. It's completely fine. But I think soccer fans, more than other sports fans, are anti-other sports. And when you want to cross over some, that doesn't help. It doesn't. When soccer fans go at 92.9 or station like 92.9, it's not even a 92.9 conversation, just saying, like, when soccer fans go at the local affiliate and say, well, why are you talking about the Falcons? Only talk about Atlanta United. That's not reasonable either. It has to, the mentality, maybe it changes over time. Maybe it changes as soccer becomes more mainstream. I don't know. But I get it. I was never really that guy because I grew up on other sports, but I definitely was defensive about why soccer wasn't being talked about for a long time. But, man, ratings are ratings, and numbers are numbers. Soccer's growing dramatically, and here faster than anywhere else. But, of course, Stephen A. and Max and Colin Cowherd are going to talk about LeBron James going to the Lakers. They're going to talk about Tom Brady. They're going to talk about the Red Sox. They should. They have to do their jobs. I'd like for MLS to continue to push its way into that conversation and not be afraid of it.
Shiva with an interesting point. She thinks the other aspect is the respect for soccer in Atlanta from the other sports teams like the Braves and the Falcons and such. Those sports will attract people to soccer also.
It helps. It definitely helps. And I think it's twofold for the other teams as well, because, do you see that for the Swarm or the Dream or the Blaze or other sports teams that are on a smaller base, the Gladiators? You don't see it quite as much. The numbers for soccer are so massive that it behooves the Braves to tweet about it and mention it. The Hawks too, the Falcons, obviously, same corporate partner, so that's a different conversation. Yeah, it makes sense too, and it helps. I think that happens in other markets too, though. I don't know if it's maybe to the same degree, but I think we've seen it with the Mariners tweeting about the Sounders. I would think so. It'd be smart for the Mariners to do that.
And then Soccer for Good OG Joe Robbins says, do we dare say that as evidenced by the mainstream media coverage and the energy that drives it, Atlanta is actually a great sports town?
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it? Bad sports town. Can't support sports.
Atlanta's a great sports town. It's just a tortured sports town. Those are different things.
That's a completely different thing. Atlanta is a great sports town, and what's happening with United, what happens when the Braves are hot, what happens when the Falcons are hot, what happens when, yes, I know Georgia's in Athens, but still, when Georgia is playing for a national championship, these things are big deals, and you see the excitement in Atlanta for sports, and you see how big it can be. There is that thing in the back of everybody's mind that, oh, well, Atlanta sports, it's about to happen, the Atlanta sports curse, it's coming. Yes, that's always going to be there until you turn into Boston right now. Boston went through that too. But as just a general sports town, it's as good as anywhere in the country. And at me if you think differently.
And you want to go to break and come back and then get back to talking a little soccer?
Yeah. Well, we've been talking soccer. A lot of it.
But like on the field stuff as opposed to what people watch.
Yes, that's a different aspect of it. We will talk about that. We'll have a few more tweets as well. Tuesday Thoughts here at Soccer Down Here. Get yours in now. Final segment coming up next.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, November 6th, Tuesday Thoughts edition. John, what do we have on the Twitters as we wrap up?
Well, getting back to the David Villa discussion.
David Villa from El Paso, Texas.
Swickster and Tofka wanted to know if there was any type of disco review during the playoffs, given the number of could have been dangerous play incidents. It would be interesting. So both of them kind of wonder about disco.
It only comes up in incidents that would be a 2-game or more suspension. Disco doesn't work in the same way in the postseason. I believe that was actually from Mike Conti. I've looked to try to find it when I saw those questions coming up, and I can't seem to find a clear rule from MLS about it. I'd be absolutely gobsmacked if the discipline committee comes back with a retroactive red card in a playoff series for something like this. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get petty on the disco committee at this point. You're just not. So it is what it is. The game has to be managed on the field. I honestly don't want the disciplinary committee to come back with retroactive stuff at this point. You know, if they're going to give a suspension if somebody punches somebody in the face and it was red carded, okay, fine. I don't want them readdressing the game in a playoff. I just want the ref to handle it better on the field.
Katie Weaver asks, she knows the 2 season is over, but does the first team call any guys back for practice sessions to role play players from opponents? And related, a Carlton injury update with a question mark.
Yeah, Scott Donnelly talked about that with us on Stoppage Time. I think he mentioned it on our 1v1 as well. Guys like A.J. Cochran, Jack Metcalf have been in training, guys on 2 contracts who can't play for the first team. But then, as we saw, Lagos Kunga in the 18 late in the season. So, yeah, those guys are all training with the team right now and helping the first team on their path to MLS Cup. Have not heard an update on Carlton. He was not ready to be in the 18 on the weekend. He didn't travel. It was a contact injury. It's not a muscle injury or a ligament injury or anything like that. So it's more of just a comfort thing when he is able to go. I don't know if he'll be able to go this weekend. I'm not sure what the timeline is for it.
John Nason says, am I right in thinking that the away goal and the 1-0 result is actually meaningless? Not the result, just the away goal. The only way NYCFC wins the tie is to win at MBS, and that means scoring at least one of their own away goals.
It's not meaningless because you win with let's see. It's not meaningless. It's just not. If you had 2, it's different. Then it becomes really tricky. 1 puts more pressure on NYC. It definitely does. But as we talked about in the break, I misspoke earlier when I said that if Atlanta scored 1, New York City would have to score 3. If Atlanta scores 1, NYC has to score 2 to win. They would then have the away goal tiebreaker. So it plays into it. People go back and forth about away goals and should it be part of it, should it not be part of it. It seems like it's one of those things that is split between people 50-50.
Andy Hollums with Tuesday. Has there been discussion about Atlanta United starting an under-23 team in League 2, like Red Bulls, Timbers, Sounders, and Galaxy? Seems like a great way to keep potential homegrowns engaged with the club after they go off to college.
I haven't heard of a discussion about it, but, man, I'd love to see it because it's absolutely that. You'd be able to bring in a guy like Machop Chol, who's having a great second season at Wake Forest, Aldair Cortez, who's had a good year at Georgia Southern, guys like that who you want to keep, part of the system but went on to college. Justin Garces would be another one. You could bring them back and play what used to be the PDL, now is USL League 2, play a season as Atlanta United. You could play those games at the training ground. You don't have to have a huge stadium for it, but it'd be an opportunity to have those guys around the club in the summer. I think there's a lot of benefit from it. I just think it's an infrastructure thing. You launched the USL team probably at least a year ahead of schedule because of the talent coming through. Adding a PDL team is more staff, more coaches, more time at the training ground. There's lots of things that go into it. It might take a little more time to do it, but I would absolutely agree. It could be a valuable part of the club.
HEOUTD_aficionado at Janu Klosar on Twitters. In our Overreaction Monday, we talked about if the offside technology is developed enough, and it is, but the question is, does MLS have the advanced technology of the virtual offside line? And this is I'll give that one first, and there's a follow-up.
I'm assuming they don't. I've never seen it used in anything MLS related, so I guess they don't have it, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to go with no.
Then, Jarrett, the follow-up question, have we reached a point where the quality of the product on the field has outpaced the quality of the structure around it, front office, referees, TV, or am I delusional, ?
We've gone over referees since time began that, referees have to keep pace. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. Look, clubs keep moving into whatever you want to call it. If you want to treat it like the AOL disc you used to get in the mail and it's 3.0, 4.0, whatever, it's going to pace itself accordingly, just with teams trying to change the paradigm and trying to keep getting better. And that's what it is. I mean, teams are getting better. Atlanta aims to get better. Red Bulls aim to get better. I think that's one of the reasons you just saw a team put 69 points up last year and then saw two teams do that this year like it was no big deal. You saw Atlanta go win on the road at a rate no one's ever done in this league before. I don't think that's the end of it. I'm not saying someone's going to pop 100 points one day because I don't think that's going to happen in this league because everyone else is going to get competitive as well. But you're going to have some ebbs and flows for some, in some eras of MLS. You're going to have some teams who are just, world beating. And then on the other hand, you're going to have some where it's just a dogfight because everybody is ready to go and everybody's in that mode and being great.
Now, I guess let's head into a little stoppage time. Host of Soccer Over There, Nick Alifi, says that the biggest issue is that MLS refuses to market itself like Serie A or the Premier League. No backstory, no deep dives on teams, players, coaches, etc. Just, here's the game. Investment in league-produced content would go a long way. Jarrett, what do you think?
I don't know. Jason, you want to take this? Let me gather my thoughts.
I completely agree with Nick in that you need this type of content from the league to tell its own story. Even forget Premier League and forget Serie A, I think NFL Films and their role in the growth of the National Football League can never be overlooked. It was a huge part of the growth of the league and telling the story and telling the history, but also giving context, everything that you need from a league production arm. NFL Films, I think, set the tone. You're seeing other leagues in the U.S. try to model itself after NFL Films. MLS played around with an MLS Films at one point. They did a few things that were kind of interesting behind the scenes and never really went from there. This is a different conversation than the MLS editorial narrative, which I think doesn't serve the league well right now. But again, it's in a tricky spot because the NFL and NFL.com doesn't have to carry the load like MLSsoccer.com does, because you have ESPN and Fox and everybody setting the narrative. MLS needs to, I think, first go with an MLS Films type of thing. They do need to give more context to it. They do need to tell the story about history. They do need to go deeper on things. They need to get away from just trying to get clicks and get hot takes. They need to have more than that. ESPN and the Embrace Debate movement had more than just that. It wasn't just debate all the time, every day. That's all they had. They had context. MLS right now, for me, if MLSsoccer.com is the voice of record when it comes to Major League Soccer, I would want to see them first focus on context, storytelling, analysis, rather than hot takes. You can't go hot takes without the substance. You can't go sizzle without the steak. You got to have the steak right first. And that's where I don't know if MLS Digital's getting it, but that's a different conversation than the rest of it. I think if you had MLS Films or an MLS network like the NFL has, then you've got your substance. And then you can have more hot takes on digital, and then you're furthering conversation. But when that's all the conversation is, then it feels kind of thin.
Tony Jabroni says he agrees that Atlanta's a good...
Wait a minute.
Okay, what?
Did
okay,
Jarrett gather his thoughts?
Oh, that's true. Did you gather your thoughts?
Yeah, they're not fit for print.
Oh, come on.
All right, sure, fine, whatever. Okay. Look, I want to see better coverage. You don't have to mimic NFL films exactly. You're not going to have a Harry Callis necessarily do all of that. If you want to go down that road, I'm fine, but make it your own, make it unique. As far as MLS Digital is concerned and MLS coverage, and you don't have to be so antagonistic as they've seemed to have developed into, and so hot takey, and instant replay show being one of the things. I kind of miss Simon Bork yelling at me for 10, 12 minutes at a time, as opposed to Weeby and Warshaw, picking a play and then deciding we're going to play crossfire with
it. If that's all the coverage is, you're left wanting. If that's a supplement to coverage, okay, fine, because some people prefer that type of coverage, and that's great. But if that's all it is, it's just not enough.
One of the annoying parts for me is that you have stuff like that is annoying, aggravates me. I either ignore it or I hate watch it. One of the two, either one. And I feel like in the muck of all of that, it buries some really good pieces. They do some really good work sometimes.
Yep.
And I feel like it gets buried in just the hot takiness and the crossfire-esque stuff.
We got a little bit
both.
We have a little bit of this that just happened.
Uh-oh.
Little air horn. LA Galaxy part ways with Vice President of Soccer Operations Pete Vahanis. Chris Klein not gone. Pete Vahanis gone.
Okay.
Curious to see what happens with the Galaxy next.
And wasn't there also a discussion about Zlatan not hanging around and going back to Syria?
Of course, there's a discussion about Zlatan eating breakfast. I mean, that's just what happens. But there's talk about it.
I make breakfast better.
There's talk.
That's another
about
thing.
Zlatan
I don't need to know every time Zlatan takes 3 steps and doesn't trip over his own feet. I love Zlatan. I love the character that he plays and the kayfabe he carries, whether or not he's whether it's a shoot or work. But I'm going to be curious to see what happens on that front with them, because, hey, Galaxy just missed the playoffs. Man, with Zlatan. Yeah. That team could be really interesting, because now they have some problems down the street with LAFC, and the Galaxy are going to have to compete somehow.
We talked about it 2 years ago, Jarrett, about the Galaxy having to deal with LAFC coming to town, and what approach were they going to take? Were they going to follow what the Red Bulls did and double down on development and go local more than try to be Hollywood, or are they going to try to fight fire with fire? They've kind of just not really changed anything. They've kind of just been who they are and act like LAFC doesn't exist, and that is not working at all.
And Tony Jabroni says he agrees Atlanta's a good sports town. I don't think Atlanta's much different than any other city. Winning drives crowds. If the teams aren't winning, the games don't sell out.
Exactly. I mean, that's anywhere. If the team's not winning, I mean, I don't see. And NFL's different, but even it happens there too. Did you see the end of the Falcons Redskins game at FedEx Field? I mean, did you see that there was nobody there? Did you hear the Falcons fans in the building?
Sure, there were. They were all Falcons fans.
That's it.
You could hear the screaming of hoop every time Austin Hooper did a thing.
Yep. It happens everywhere, folks. Like, Atlanta's no different. Everybody just wants to pick on Atlanta about it.
Then Joe McCurdy It says, after watching the Atlanta United match for the third time, I prefer miniature golf to actual golf, but I never thought I'd prefer miniature soccer to actual soccer. Hashtag 1-0, let's go.
Take it. I don't prefer it, but you
Come play
take
foot
it.
golf then.
The foot golf is sweet. It's a nice in-between. Yeah, it's just not... You can't play good soccer on that field, and I think NYC as a club wants to play good soccer, and they're not capable of doing it in their own building. That's not a good look. Hopefully, they can figure something out. As I've said many times, I get why NYC came into the league when they did. I get the concessions that MLS made to bring them into the league. You needed them. This wave of NYC, Orlando, Minnesota, Atlanta, LAFC kicking off this next group is really big. It was necessary. It was at a time when you were about to do a new TV deal. I don't know if the TV deal would have been what it was without NYC coming in. It was a move that needed to be done at that time. Well, the league's really pushed past everything faster than I think anybody expected. NYC's got to figure something out about a stadium. Yankee Stadium cannot be the venue for a whole lot longer. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's going to be costly, but it's got to get done because that's just not good enough for what this league wants to present.
We are officially caught up on the Twitters for Tuesday Thoughts.
Well, all right. Well, that's a show then. We'll be back tomorrow, well past Wednesday. We'll get deeper into Atlanta and NYC, looking ahead to leg 2 of the conference semifinals. We'll also start to look ahead to Portland and Seattle, who play on Thursday because of a car show. Yeah, that happened.
Oh, God.
I think that's it. We'll be back tomorrow. 9 a.m. Soccer Down Here app, and the numbers still are awesome. Thanks for everybody who's downloaded. Keep getting it if you don't have it already. Android, iOS versions available. You can listen soccerdownhere.net and Spreaker as well. Thanks to everybody who listens on ESPN Coastal, the XL Sports Network, Barn Burner in Canada. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha playoffs, y'all.